Let's talk about what is actually happening today, because it's a very, very, very busy day. So we all saw that extraordinary procession. It's the front page of pretty much every newspaper yesterday, to today, of the Queen's coffin being taken from Balmoral. Silence as the coffin left Balmoral, and then arriving in Edinburgh, and along the way wonderful crowds gathering. Edinburgh, the scenes in Edinburgh were quite extraordinary. Some wonderful marks of respect, just farmers driving their tractors to have a guard of honour of tractors, which I thought was just gloriously British kind of but the coffin of the Queen is now in the Palace of Holyrood House, but today we'll make the journey along the Royal Mile to move to St Giles Cathedral.
Absolutely, this afternoon, after the King has spoken in the Palace of Westminster.
We'll come to that, yes.
Well, that will be the first thing, but in the end, he will be going straight up to Scotland, because that's part of what he has to do over this coming week, is to visit not only Scotland, then he has to go in an official capacity. Clearly, he was in Scotland, was already last week, and then got to his mother's bedside on that Thursday. But this is part of the official process that he has to do while he's before the funeral. So not only goes to Scotland, he will be going to Belfast tomorrow, and then Cardiff at the end of the week. But then, if we saw the crowds like they were yesterday for that emotional drive down the Royal Mile, I think we'll see something very similar today, this afternoon, when they go back up the Royal Mile into St Giles's Cathedral. Indeed. And the members of the royal family will be walking behind the coffin. And I think that, again, will be another hugely emotional moment for the family.
And so reminiscent, really, think, if you go back to Diana's funeral and Queen Mother's funeral as well. Well, let's start back at the beginning of the morning then. So at 10 o'clock this morning, MPs and peers will file into Westminster Hall in the Houses of Parliament. Later, the Queen's body will be laid in state later on this week, and they will be hearing an address from the King. It's very rare, obviously, for King to address at both Houses of Parliament. Then, as you say, he gets on a plane to fly to Edinburgh along with the Queen Consort Camilla, and as you say, they will walk behind the coffin from Holyrood to St Giles along the Royal Mile. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, there will be a service of remembrance at St Giles Cathedral. It'll also be attended by the Queen. There's been a bit of, apologies, by the Prime Minister. There's been a lot of confusion about the Prime Minister's role in this. There's this idea that the Prime Minister was going to join the King on tour. That's not the case. She will be attending the memorial services in each constituent part of the United Kingdom, which would be considered to be appropriate to do. From 5 o'clock tonight, the public will be able to view the coffin for 24 hours. The King's also going to be meeting with Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland, and also there was condolences in the Scottish Parliament. You should say that vigil tonight at St Giles with other royals, I think that's going to be the most poignant moment today.
Yes, because they will stand aside the coffin, and that's around about 7:20, I think, this evening, that they will take their place beside the coffin, and that will be, I think, well, as we've seen, throughout. You saw the Princess Royal yesterday. They are a family grieving, and you can see that. But it's such a public thing they have to go through to stand there, and you have to suddenly realise there are all these sort of slightly state obligations, but at the same time, you have to actually realise that for this week, every move, they are being analysed, and their grief is there for us all to see. And we note, most noticeably, the Princess Royal yesterday was just, having to and by all accounts, it was the Queen's bidding that she did be part of the cortege yesterday, but she bore it with such typical stoicism. But you see at the end just how much difficult it has been for her.
I do think it's one of those things that's very easy for a lot of people to forget, especially people you can be a staunch monarchist, and then people are sort of showing their grief to the King, and they were seeing these. We'll talk about those royal walkabouts in a moment. I remember thinking this when I was a news reporter covering Diana, Princess of Wales's funeral, and there were these two young boys walking along, having lost their mother, showing the most incredible strength and stoicism. We know how much damage Harry certainly felt it had done to him, being sort of told to do that. And there are these people weeping and wailing, and I just think, oh my goodness, you as much as you might have loved, the Queen, can you just bear in mind it's not about you right now. You are talking about her family, and I do think we need to remember, whatever age Prince Charles is, or Princess Anne is, or Andrew or Edward, whether you like them or hate them, whatever they've done, you just lost your mum. I mean, you've got to remember she was a mum as well as the Queen.
And that's why, obviously, Prince Andrew, with all his controversies, you just have to set that aside. Clearly, for this week, you've just got to say, at the moment, he is a son grieving for his mother. And so, therefore, you have to, but clearly
there's no doubt at all he will be hoping there is an opportunity for him to come back. But we know that he was very much the Queen's favourite. But Prince Charles has made it very, very clear that is an option. Candice, let me bring you in, Candice Holdsworth. Do you think, I mean, this is very much a by the by, but I want to talk about Meghan and Harry as well and the supposed rapprochement with William and Kate. Do you think that there is any route back for Prince Andrew now that the Queen has passed away?
I don't think so. I think a short window will open up for him to mourn his mother. I think people will understand that, but beyond that, no, I don't think so.
That's it. And in terms of the walkabout we saw over the weekend, where a car drove down from Balmoral Castle Gate to Balmoral Castle Gates, and then we saw what used to be called the Fab Four, didn't they? William and Kate and Harry and Meghan get out, and they went and viewed the flowers. 45 minutes they were out there talking to people and viewing the flowers. And there was talk about this wonderful rapprochement. And then, of course, it emerged that, well, it was Prince William who'd written a text message to Harry to suggest he does it. And then it, well, again, all rather strange given that they were all in Balmoral. But then it emerged that actually Harry and Meghan had already planned to go and do a walkabout on their own, and had notified a US TV station to be ready and waiting, and that was when William stepped in, and there were apparently 45 minutes of negotiations over what would happen. When you know those facts, do you view those images in a different way?
I do. I mean, you could see the things were very, very tense. I mean, Kate in particular looked stiff and uncomfortable and stern.
She did not want to be there.
Yes, that was not the face of someone just grieving. That was the face of someone who was feeling quite angry, I think, but holding it inside. I think it's just so awful that all this is going on, that they can't just come together like this. I mean, Harry and Meghan are really going to come in. So disrespectful. It's
disrespectful not just to the Queen's memory. It's disrespectful to the nation, in my view. In that scenario, Rupert, I can see you're itching to say something different.
I'm going to try and take the view that William needed to do this, because one of the things you talked about, the family were up at Balmoral, and there were some lovely touching scenes of them going out there, but Harry was conspicuous by his absence, and you suddenly thought, well, this is, and then you think, well, Harry's just been locked away in Frogmore Cottage and we're never going to see him again till the funeral. I'm going to take a positive view that William was grabbed the situation, and as you see the Fab Four, as they say, walking out, here looked a man who knew what he was about.
Well, they got the headlines they wanted, which was reunited in grief. But the point is, that wasn't a moment of rapprochement. It wasn't. It was a dealing with the PR of the fact that Harry and Meghan were going to go out on their own.
But I think, yes, they may have been planning to do that, but I think it was William saying, right, that's not happening. We've got to look like we are a family grieving together.
And controlling the soap opera aspects of the royalty, which is something that the Queen never got part of. Not only with that mantra, never complain, never explain, but just not... The stoicism, the quiet, there was never any scandal attached to her. There was never any she never did anything embarrassing. She never did you think, oh, goodness me, I can't believe you did that. There was no, tell-alls and things like, no Oprah Winfrey. I mean, we are going to see a very different monarchy now.
We are, and I think the tone has been set by these walkabouts in many ways, because the moment the King went out on Friday and did that walkabout, I think that may have been a spontaneous decision to just go out and actually...
No, that wouldn't have been spontaneous.
Well, there was one on Saturday that looked a bit spontaneous when he suddenly pulled up. That was after the Meghan and Harry and the Fab Four had been out on Clarence House. But what it means, it certainly to do that would have looked... From all he was wanting him to engage with the public, because one of the issues that people are saying is he has not got the warmth of the British public, clearly, that like his mother had, and he's got to find a way of connecting, and that was one way that he has proved and showed it, and I think he would have fed off that to engage, and that's what they've got to bring.
He got a very, very warm reception from people at Buckingham Palace, bearing in mind that people at Buckingham Palace would have been, let's be honest, tourists passing. But I do think it's possible to have these conversations in a respectful fashion without without sort of, let's face it, and frankly, a lot of the media making stuff up, that there were thousands. There weren't thousands of people there. On a Saturday outside Buckingham Palace, on a normal day, there are hundreds of people who are, often tourists passing by with their cameras. But there was no doubt at all, he had a very warm reception. Can I also ask you about, some of the details that we're going to be seeing about the funeral? And obviously, the etiquette of this. These things have been planned. Operation London Bridge has been in planning for decades, and we know that a lot of the plans for Queen Mother's funeral sort of got changed because of the outpouring of grief at that time. But we saw Prince Philip, obviously, because of the timing with lockdown rules, that was a much smaller affair, and then in a way his memorial service kind of took over a lot of that. This is going to be even bigger because it is a state funeral, though we know it could be up to 1 million people wanting to go and view the Queen coffin lying in state in Westminster Hall over those 4 days, but also the huge numbers of foreign dignitaries, heads of state, heads of government, who will be flying in for that Westminster Abbey service next Monday morning.
This is a headache because you can have all the plans in the world, which is, as you say, Operation London Bridge has been planned, tweaked, changed probably on a weekly basis. Now the reality is here, then they've got to manage all the people coming in, and it is a security nightmare. That is the huge issue. And as you've been alluding to, how do we get all these heads of states around? And then it comes to just the logistics of saying, right, how do we get everybody into Westminster Abbey? We've got to, because funeral starts at 11 and it's not straightforward. This week, and that's why they will have all these rehearsals at various stages. I think Thursday, early morning rehearsals, which, the street lining, everything will have to be worked out to the second, and that includes moving in the various heads of states. And so if President Joe Biden, when he comes here, he will not be travelling around London as he would have expected to be under normal circumstances.
In his motorcade in the Beast. No, indeed. Well, look, really good to talk to you. I know we'll talk to you again many, many times on this. Rupert Bell, Talk Radio's World Correspondent.